Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Layman's Law School, where three Southern gentlemen lawyers get together and we discuss the legal issues in the news, hopefully in a way in which lay people can understand. So you better understand what's going on and how the law relates to it. Today I'm joined, as usual, by my friends, colleagues, mentors, and
I think
partners.
you take mentors out.
pushing
That's
a little
strong.
far.
I appreciate the compliment.
Well, I look up to you guys in many ways.
Yeah.
But
Usually in the form of what not to do.
well, today we were going to cover the Karen Reid trial again and give you some updates on that. It's a trial that's been gripping the nation, and I know I go home every day and watch the highlights of the trial. But we were given a gift
That's
of
right.
Scottie
Scottie
Scheffler.
Yeah. So we woke up this morning and like I said, we've been following the Karen Reid case, and we're going to continue to do that. We have some collaborations in the works as well with some other podcasts and YouTubers. So we're going to do that. But this just was very interesting, and it's kind of a silly, fun kind of case today with Scottie Scheffler. Now, the reason it is fun is because Scottie Scheffler's a very famous person, and this is this is all going to just go away. But why we want to talk about it is if this happens to you, you're not a famous rich person.
Sure.
You're going to need some help. So anyway, before we start, let's go ahead and do our tradition.
It is Friday.
It is Friday. It's a rainy day. But
We're having a better Friday than Scottie
That's
was.
right. Right.
Yes.
Well, no, he's been doing pretty good so far.
Actually,
so,
I looked and he was already
Like
4 under today.
We'll have to check during as we
Sure.
go. But in celebration of Valhalla and the tournament,
The
and
PGA
Championship, we'll start it off with a Bud Light here,
Well,
Chase.
guys, I have to inform y'all that about 10 minutes ago I did convert to Islam, and so I can no longer engage in this.
Well, the good news is a lot of people will say this is like drinking water anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cheers.
It's good stuff. Good stuff.
And
Chase,
I
how do you
like
feel
it
about
that this one is about, a 41, 42 degrees. It's not
Yes,
ice cold either.
Exactly. It's just nice and lukewarm.
Perfect.
Lukewarm.
Like I said, we were going to talk about Karen Reid, something that everybody kind of knows about. But I'm glad we're going to take into account and talk about a legal issue that really, really matters. A pro golfer getting arrested.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the reason I think it's interesting too is because this kind of thing can happen. It legitimately can happen to any of us, and it's funny because it happened to Scottie Scheffler, and he's arrested, and all this stuff. And like I said, this is going to go away. But if it happens to one of us, it may not go away. You don't have all the cameras out there to show what happened. But so essentially, to give a brief rundown of what happened outside of Valhalla, the golf course, there was a fatal accident. Essentially, a pedestrian was hit and later died in this tragic scene. As soon as the PGA found out about it, I believe it was 6:18 a.m. They found out about it, and they delayed the tournament, the round 2 for the PGA tournament or championship, excuse me. So around that time, Scottie Scheffler was coming in to warm up for his round. Normally, when you have that, they being the golfers have specific instructions on what they are supposed to do. They have to have their signage and their badges and all this stuff, and they have a specific lane that they go in, and they're prepped prior to the tournament to do all these things. And that's what Scottie Scheffler did. Now, there's a police officer. He doesn't know about the wreck. There's a police officer who is in bright yellow garb and police uniform. The crazy thing or sad thing is normally when it's just somebody directing traffic, not an officer, they wear the exact same thing. And this is 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun's not up. It's still dark. Scottie Scheffler shows the pass. And he's probably half asleep, turns in to go on in to warm up for his round, and the next thing he knows, he's being arrested. And so there's some play in there, but that's kind of the basic of the rundown. He gets arrested for. I'll let Shawn go over the charges, but then he was released on his own recognizance. We'll go over that, and at 10 o'clock, I think he's starting his second round at the golf course. So
Right.
it's just a strange timing of events.
Well, and you got to think about it. There's been a fatality,
Yeah.
incident there, and there is all sorts of police there.
Sure.
All sorts of people wearing rain jackets. Probably wrecker driver operators.
Yep.
Anybody.
And hopefully we'll be able to show the people that are watching, but people listening, just to describe it. I mean, it's those bright yellowish green
They're
rain jackets
Yeah.
that are highly visible. But the problem is everybody's wearing them. And this is a golf tournament. This is a major. This is not as big as the Masters, in my opinion, but it's certainly close. So Scottie Scheffler is used to having and seeing people all over the place, all over the road,
Sure.
all
Trying to
over
get
the,
in
and he's
into the
trying to get in
tournament
to
he's
not
in.
be bothered. He's the number one golfer in the world. So anyway,
Well,
Shawn, go
and
ahead.
that really, it's a thing of, in his only, real statement that he has, Scottie has said is that, he didn't intend to do anything, that he was going as he was directed. And obviously, anybody who knows the game of golf or who knows Scottie Scheffler knows that he is.
I mean, he's a Boy Scout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's an Eagle Scout, not just a Boy
I'm
Scout.
sorry, that's what I meant.
He
to
is
say,
an
yeah.
Eagle Scout, one of the most down to earth, modest people. A big Christian person, a family man who just had a baby.
Yep.
Just an ambassador of the game of golf.
Sure.
Like people look up to him. Not only for his athletic ability in playing the game of golf, but just his demeanor.
Yeah, and his off the course demeanor and off the course
Sure.
work and all that. So
Sure. So for something like that, it'd be a little different if the news was all about Patrick Reid
That's
getting
right.
arrested this morning. Anytime you have somebody like that who has a history
yeah.
of of rule breaking or acting like a pompous ass, you could say, oh, okay,
Augusta's own Patrick Reid. Yeah.
you could say, oh, okay, that
par for
sounds
the
like
course.
par for the course. Exactly, no pun intended
Exactly,
or
thank you.
intended. But to the allegation is that this officer is claiming that he instructed Scottie Scheffler to stop. That he did stop, but then he accelerated forward.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, this officer claims that he then latched onto the vehicle.
This is what I don't understand, and you're going to have to explain this to me.
Maybe he thought he was going to stop a $3,000-4,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 pound car with his bare hands. I don't know.
What was the we'll get into it. I'm not going to continue. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the allegation is that, Scottie Scheffler continued for, I've heard 10, I've heard 15, I've heard 20 yards, and then stopped. And then this guy, this officer was trying to yank him out of the window, and eventually the door was open and just immediately threw him against the car, put him in handcuffs. And one of the news reporters who was there,
I saw that, yeah.
who I guess, either seen the incident happen or saw the aftermath after it.
From what I read, he saw it. He didn't see the pushing up against the car. He saw a commotion and started recording and asking questions.
And he actually knows Scottie Scheffler. I mean, because he's a ESPN
follows,
reporter
yeah.
or one of the national news sports reporters, and he said that just the look in his eyes of Scottie Scheffler was absolutely nothing but bewilderment, surprise, like I don't even know what is happening,
Right.
type thing. So it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of things that it was an intentional act of
Sure.
him to disobey a police officer or anything. And his statement is that he was doing as directed, didn't intend to do anything
Right.
against the wishes of any officer that was there. So I think it's obviously some type of misunderstanding.
Sure.
Either the police officer has misunderstood what has occurred, or Scottie Scheffler has misunderstood what has occurred, or a combination,
Right.
of both. But we're talking about criminal charges.
And
And
that's,
serious ones here.
That's what I was about. That's what I wanted you to get to is that, and that's why I want to bring it back to hopefully the folks that are watching is that, this can happen, and this is why you need good defense attorneys and good lawyers, is that this can happen to me as soon as I walk out this door. This can happen
Sure.
to you, and it's not a slap on the wrist, pay $100. He's charged with a felony that can hold up to 10 years in prison. So you're talking about some serious charges here.
Yeah, and it's likely to be enhanced here considering who he actually assaulted. In this case, it being a police officer. But there's a lot of things that are in Scottie Scheffler's favor, it's specifically with regard to the second degree assault charge.
Right.
First of all, second degree assault in Kentucky, is defined as intentionally causing serious physical injury to another person or causing injury using a deadly weapon or a dangerous instrument. Car definitely qualifies as a dangerous instrument.
Chace, let me stop you, and I want you to finish what you're saying, but just to give the folks at home, this is what we do. This is what attorneys do, is you get this definition, and you don't read it in totality. You read and see, there's little parts of it all the way through. Does it match this? Does it match this? Does it match this? And so that's what Chace is reading, and we do that naturally now because we've been trained to do it. But the folks at home that aren't attorneys, you can do it too. Just take each word and analyze it and figure out what the elements of the charge are and do they fit.
That's right. So in this case, if he's going to be actually convicted of the second degree assault, they're going to have to, basically prove it's a dangerous instrument. I don't think that's an issue.
Right.
They might have an issue with serious physical injury to another person under the circumstances, from what I know.
And for the police officer's written statement, he said that he had suffered pain, swelling, and abrasion to his left wrist and knee, and he was transported to the hospital for further medical and emergency treatment.
Yeah, abrasions don't typically qualify.
Sure, I'm just that's what's been reported.
He got a boo-boo.
He got a boo-boo.
Right.
He got strawberry.
Well, and that's it's interesting because like in Georgia, it wouldn't necessarily matter what the injuries were.
Right.
This law is very similar to what we would call aggravated assault in Georgia, when you use a deadly weapon or an instrument that is likely to cause serious injury or death. But it doesn't matter if I pull out a gun in Georgia and I shoot at you, but don't injure you, I'm still guilty of aggravated assault.
Absolutely.
This seems to be like that you actually intentionally caused.
That's what I'm saying. The intent is the big key there in the definition of their crime.
Right. So that's going to be that's where it's going to be very hard for the prosecution to actually prove anything about his intent. It would have to, and typically they would have to use circumstantial evidence to prove that he intended to do this. He saw him, he said, I'm get out of my way, I'm gonna run you over.
Sure.
Something like that to prove.
Or
that
somebody in the passenger seats heard something, but there's got to be something there.
Yeah, there's something about the circumstances and the facts of the case that point to that. There's no other conclusion that he intended to do just what he intended to drag this guy behind his car.
Sure.
Right, and hurt him. Right, and in this case, there are just too many other outs. First of all, like Reid said, that this guys are wearing these yellow jackets. They're very, very similar to the ones the security guard's been wearing for the first day. Now they're police officers. He doesn't know he's a police officer, just based on the yellow jacket.
Yep.
Sure.
Right? It's very reasonable that a jury would believe that he's a
security
guard.
All what you're talking about is attacking intent.
Yeah,
how do you have intent if you don't even know who it is?
Right, intent to hurt a police officer.
Right.
If you're charging him and try to get enhancement for him being a police officer, it's going to be difficult considering that he looks exactly like the security guard. And then in showing that he intentionally did this. Now, so in these situations, the rules don't really apply to the golfers the same way they do to everybody else going into these tournaments, right?
Absolutely.
They go into different lanes. They don't have to wait in line, or they don't. They go into So
they have designated lanes for them to go travel in.
It would be very normal if Scottie knows he's supposed to be in that lane, and a security guard's telling him to go in some other lane, for him to say, no, I'm supposed to go over here,
player.
and I'm going to play. I'm going over there. Very, very normal, very, very reasonable reason for doing that. And so in this case, I think what you're going to see is a couple of things. One, it shouldn't necessarily be like this. You're going to see how justice can apply a little bit differently depending on who actually was charged, right?
Absolutely.
But you're also going to see the way in which media coverage can affect how a prosecutor or a law enforcement agency actually deals with an issue like this.
Sure.
I mean,
and you can start with the fact that he was arrested, transported to jail, booked, and on his way out a little over an hour.
and his bond was his own recognizant, and that's not uncommon for a lot of charges like a DUI, even if you don't have a history. But that is extremely uncommon, at least in Georgia, when you're charged with a felony.
Certainly.
You know, I don't know about Kentucky, but I would imagine that their judges don't let potential felons just roam the streets without a bond.
Within an hour.
Within an hour.
Very, very, very unusual circumstances with regard to that. The second thing he was charged with was third-degree criminal mischief. Intentional, and that basically is defined by intentionally or wantonly damaging property, causing a pecuniary loss of less than $5,000. And
I'm going to stop you there. The charge that is stemming from is Officer Gillis's Lululemon pants that were his uniform Lululemon pants that were valued at approximately $80, and I quote, damaged beyond repair.
Yeah.
Well, those polyester trousers that the police officers are wearing in this uniform, you know, if you rip them, I mean, they are damaged beyond repair. They don't put a patch on them.
I understand.
However, the $80 value, maybe polyester is coming back into style.
Well, yeah. Side note, it's well known that the owner of Lululemon is racist against Asians.
Why?
Well, he chose the name for his company based on the fact that it had so many L's and it would be hard for Chinese to actually pronounce it. They have a real hard time.
I'm not going to get into any of that. That's just a terrible road for Reid to go down.
I just thought it was
Roo Rimmons. I mean, that's a terrible thing. Yeah.
Well, look here. I said it. You said you're not going to go down it, and you immediately.
I know.
But
it's just. I mean,
I'm not wearing my Lulus today. I actually have my Peter Millers on.
Yeah, they have great underwear. But anyway, then he got charged with some other things that I think he is going to have to deal with, and that's reckless driving, and these are just regular traffic, infractions. You can get jail time for reckless driving, but you got to be doing some serious reckless driving to get a lot of jail time for it.
Well, I mean,
usually it's in connection with something else.
I doubt in the 20 yards
that's
that this occurred
and
at.
Shawn, that is.
I don't know what speed he could have gotten up to, and what overt acts he could have done.
That's the extreme estimation. It's been said 10. Like, I mean, let's think about how short a distance 10 and 20 yards is in a vehicle. Like that's. Just
a car. That's a car length.
It's nothing. It's nothing. And so this to me is just a furtherance of the movement of police officers having the little man syndrome, whatever you want to call it, power trip, all that stuff. Yeah. There is no reason that this should be in the court system. There's no reason that this person, Scheffler, whoever, if it was a normal citizen, should have 4 charges against them on a misunderstanding from both parties. From both parties.
Sure.
And so that is what is scary, and that's why what I wanted to talk about and why I wanted to talk about it today is, yes, it's funny because Scheffler's not going to have any issue with this. I guarantee you all this crap is gone. Yeah. This junk is gone. The absolute most that he would do is he would disregard traffic signals, pay $100 in court costs. And that $500 that he pays is nothing because he's a millionaire. But I'm talking about the normal civilian that pulls out here, and let's take downtown Augusta. They've changed the roads. Right? They've changed the roads. Construction's going on. A lot of one-way streets now. You accidentally or you haven't been to Augusta in 10 years. You come back downtown, you take the wrong way. This easily could be your charges. Then what? And what do you do? What do you do? You're not a famous golfer. You're not a celebrity. Yeah. You know, how do you fight that?
Yeah. And
I would call the Hawk Law Group, but
well, Shawn,
no, you get put in that position. Especially people, that. A lot of times people don't have financial resources to hire an attorney, and then
especially on, let's take out the second-degree assault, right? If it was just criminal mischief, reckless driving, and disregarding a traffic signal, and you're a normal person, it's going to almost cost you as much money to hire an attorney as to pay those fines.
Sure.
And that's It drives me crazy. I hate that. I don't want that. I don't like our society being that way. I don't have the answer.
Yeah,
but
I think that felony charge would probably go away without a lawyer and without it being
Absolutely.
Without it being Scottie Scheffler, because I mean,
I agree with
Shawn,
that.
when you're a police officer, you have the initial right when something like this were to occur to make some decisions about to arrest the person, and then to list out the reasons why you arrested him.
You have broad discretion, and that's what troubles me so much about this. I think, like Reid said earlier, it's, once the guy was injured, like there was there weren't going to be any compromise.
Right.
There was not going to be any compromise. Yes. And the reporter who filmed, the aftermath of it, he explained that they weren't even asking him any questions. That at one point, once Scottie Scheffler was already in the back of the patrol car, he was telling the officer, officer, I'm sorry. I didn't know what you were doing. I didn't mean to disobey anything you did or that you were directing me to do, or I didn't mean to drag you or something to that effect. And that officer wasn't even having it. So it doesn't seem like when we have a situation where both parties might have had a miscalculation of what was occurring, that there was any attempt to talk to him and say, hey, what was going on? What is your side of the story?
Right.
All it was you're going to jail.
Yeah.
This is our side of the story.
And that was in that video, Shawn. It's a good point. Even when people were trying to say, hey, what's going on? The police officer and not the arresting police officer was saying, essentially, I'm not talking about it. There's nothing anyone in this world can do. He's going to jail.
Sure. You don't want a witness statement?
Yeah,
Maybe I saw what happened.
Right. It doesn't
Nope.
matter. Don't want it. He's going to jail. And that's the kind of attitude that I think Americans all over America are fed up with from the police officers. And most of them are not that way. But that's a bad look right here.
Well, and I think that
look.
some of the officers that were there were there because of the fatality investigation.
Absolutely.
They weren't part of the actual
Sure.
officers and security force that were in place for the PGA Championship.
Right.
So they weren't, they didn't know the process, procedures, where the golfers were supposed to go, even though he supposedly was driving one of the PGA Tour courtesy cars, whether it a Mercedes or whatever, they happened to give them to drive. I'm sure that it had stickers or some type of credentials on it. But I don't think that officer or detective who was involved in this, probably was a part of the actual PGA Championship security force or special detail. So wouldn't have that, information necessarily or even look for it.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm going to play, I want to say, like devil's advocate here a little bit, but I'm going to try and place myself in the place of the police officer. If I'm working traffic, okay, it's early in the morning. Okay,
5:30 a.m.
Yeah, 5:30 a.m. There's it's raining, right? They call me, wake me up because they need extra officers because there's a fatality.
Sure.
Right?
You're mad. You're sleeping alone. Your wife left you last week.
All that, right? And I don't
didn't even
know
have
this.
time to brew a cup of coffee.
Yeah, I don't know this, but I'd imagine they don't really like processing crime scenes and doing traffic detail in the rain. First of all, traffic detail, from what I understand, would not be what most officers got involved in law enforcement to do, directing traffic. Okay, that would be
part of the job.
I know, but that would be
maybe not. Now, once you've elevated to the rank of detective, maybe not.
Yeah, but that would be something I think that it would. That's like cleaning the latrines kind of stuff.
I wouldn't say it's that bad. I did a lot of traffic direction, and I would much rather do that than clean toilets.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, like on the scale of it. So he's doing the job he doesn't necessarily want to do. Probably didn't expect to have to do. In an environment that's probably the worst environment to have to work in.
Sure.
In Kentucky, right? Snowstorms don't necessarily happen too much or
And
whatever.
he's in there, and a bunch of rich people are yelling at him.
Bunch of rich people, nobody's listening, right? And now I got big shot, rich golfer. I'm telling him what to do. I'm trying to preserve the scene in which we have to investigate a fatality. Whenever that happens, there are special teams in every state, in every jurisdiction that come in and do a very detailed survey of the scene to determine exactly how the accident happened because someone died, right? And he's driving. He might be in that situation driving through it. I don't know where that guy was actually hit. And so he may be like, all right, first of all, I'm doing something I don't want to do. At the time I don't want to do it. It's raining. I got, rich jerk's not listening to me. And I got this guy, when I stop him and tell him where he's got to go, he's not listening to me. And he might be going through a scene where it's important that we get all, we preserve all the evidence of that scene. And he's not listening to me. And it pissed him the hell off.
Sure.
Right. And I think that as much as, it's not necessarily right to overcharge anybody, of course, I just, he, as a man, did not have the right. This guy drug him behind the car, didn't listen to him, disregarded his instructions, didn't have the right to take him out, whoop his tail, and put him back in his car and send him on his way. But what he could do is throw some punches on paper and say, "You gonna have to deal with this now. You didn't listen to me. You ruined my Lululemons.
Yep.
Okay, beyond repair."
I get the human side of it.
Yeah,
I do, and I get that.
But he
side
knows
of
this.
it.
He
But
knows it's going away.
But
too.
I don't get
but I
where
don't-
there's
you
not
can't do that
some
as an
supervisors
officer.
around that
Right.
say, okay, what happened? Okay, did anybody ask this person you
Yeah.
just arrested what
That's
happened?
a problem. Is there's no the scene. There, it's one thing if you're an officer and you're out there and you're alone and blah blah blah. That stuff. This scene is littered with officers.
Sure.
It's littered with people, and maybe that's why. Maybe he wants to get him out of there. Blah blah blah. I don't think that is. But to take no statements, to ask no questions. It's just
He's flexing on him
he's
a little bit.
flexing,
Yeah.
and I understand that you may want to do that, but I want to do that in my job sometimes. I don't, because that's not my job.
Yeah.
And so regardless of how you feel, that's not your job.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous to have people in a position of power that can't control their emotions.
Right. Well, luckily we do have a lot of safeguards for this kind of stuff. The police officer can charge whatever he wants, and then the prosecutor, DA, elected official, actually has what they call prosecutorial discretion. They can look at the facts and circumstances of this case and say, I am prosecuting that, I am not prosecuting that. I'm reducing all these charges, or I'm dismissing the case in full, or I am going to make him, do... what is it? I'm going to charge him with reckless driving and disregarding the traffic signal. And hey, don't pay the fine, but come back and we have a youth golf program, and we need you 3 times a year to come and lead the youth golf program. So I'm anticipating Scottie Scheffler's going to be doing some community service in Kentucky.
I
as a
bet you he
result of
never
this.
visits Kentucky unless there's another golf tournament. Because I would.
I think I would be on Reid's
He ain't
side.
doing that, man.
It's
I
just
think-
And another thing that
But
I
the way-
found
with the-
interesting.
I don't know Scottie Scheffler, but the way you guys described him, Boy Scout and all, I bet you it would not be out of the realm of possibility for him and that guy, for him to invite him to the next thing, give him tickets.
I would agree with that.
Fix all that
I would
stuff.
agree.
Yeah.
He'll be the bigger man.
That would be the right thing to do.
But I heard that his name is Detective Gillis McElroy, which
How
is
about
strange. That's just a joke, ladies and gentlemen, the golf followers. But the one thing I will say about the whole situation, and we're getting short on time, is that I did think that Scottie Scheffler did a good job of going along with it. All right,
Absolutely.
And so this is what happens to most people in our world when we see it. Is you start screaming, fighting, kicking, and all this other
this
stuff.
isn't right. And you try to fight
and
it
you
right
fight
there.
it there on the street. You can't fight that on the street.
Always
Try to
lose.
get your phone out, start telling the police officer that you know your rights.
and that means, and so what happens in that situation is, like we just talked about, all this stuff's going away. But if Scottie Scheffler throws a fit and throws a punch and kicks and screams and makes him tackle him to go in, then he is guilty.
Do you
Then
know
he
who-
is guilty.
do you know who I am?
Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
talk. And so, for the folks out there, if this does happen to you, and it hopefully will never happen to you, but it can, just remember, you will never win on the street. You will not. I have people calling me from the street, and I say, what do you think I can do? I can do it in about a week, but I can't help you on the street. So don't make it worse. Even if you're being harmed, and I'm not talking physically beat up. I'm talking about being harmed, charged when you shouldn't be. You're not going to win there. You got to go, all right, let me control my emotions, because the officer's certainly not. And that's going to go a long way to try and to prove your innocence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as far as Scottie Scheffler's I guess, agent and PR team or whatever. I think they need to try to work out a Lululemon sponsorship.
That's true. Maybe we can be brought in on that, Shawn. You might get you some new pants out of this deal.
Hey.
Well, that's going to do it for us today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week when we cover Reid trial again. So stay tuned for that. Thank y'all for watching.